Energy bills in the UK are already the highest in Europe. Ofgem now plans to add even more to your bill through what they're calling a debt relief scheme. Today, we're going to dig into what's really happening, who's going to pay for it, and why the government is being as quiet as possible and letting this happen. Okay, so let's start with what are Ofgem proposing? Ofgem's energy debt relief scheme was announced last month back in October 2025. And when I say announced, it was very quietly slipped onto their website without much fanfare at all. The whole point of this scheme is to tackle the 4.4 billion of energy debt that is currently held by the UK energy providers. Now, a lot of this debt has been accruing since COVID, since around about 2020. But over the last couple of years, this debt has been increasing. So the energy providers are looking for how are we going to recover this money? Because the likelihood is most of the people that owe the money can't afford to pay it. So Ofgem's proposal starts with phase one in early 2026, where they're planning to write off £500 million of historic debt for about 195,000 households. Now, this sounds great, doesn't it? People who can't afford to pay their energy bills are going to get that written off. Well, it sounds great, but let's talk about how this is going to be funded. Now, normally, when a company accrues debts that they just have no possibility that they're ever going to see that money, is they get written off. But not in the energy sector. The way this money is going to be paid is it's going to be funded through an extra levy on our annual household bills. Ofgem are predicting for 2026 this will add £52 to your household energy bill in 2026. So effectively £1 per week. But I can guarantee you that in 2027, this will continue to be added, 2028, and it will become part of your standard bill even once all of this debt has been completely written off. So who's going to benefit from this scheme? Well, the plan is to target households on means-tested benefits who have over £100 of debt that they accrued between April 2022 and March 2024. And again, I will put a link to the Ofgem press release in the description below if you want to read more details on this. So how's it supposed to work? Well, the debt will be written off for vulnerable households, in theory, to avoid disconnection. Now, we all know disconnection is a threat that the energy companies use, but the process that they have to go through before they can physically disconnect somebody is so onerous that very, very few people, no matter how much debt they owe to the energy companies, ever get disconnected. What they usually do is force them into a prepaid meter so that they just can't accrue any more debt. Now, the way this has been set up, I think, is just completely wrong. Suppliers will be able to reclaim their costs via Ofgem as what they call debt allowance. This allowance is funded by bill payers, not by their profits. So energy companies who are already making big profits and paying dividends to their shareholders, instead of having to write off all of this debt and potentially not pay as much to their shareholders, will continue to pay to their shareholders because they're going to get all of this money that they weren't able to recover on their own. And you and we're going to pay for it. So as I said a moment ago, we're going to be paying this through a £52 per household levy that's going to be added to our bills. Now, remember, we are just over a year into a new government who one of their key manifesto pledges when they got elected was that they were going to reduce our energy bills by £300 a year. Now, I don't know about you, I haven't seen my energy bills reduce at all. So is this now £352 a year that they're promising to reduce our bills by? Because I'm seeing nothing on the horizon that shows that they're making any efforts to bring down our energy bills. What they're actually doing is subsidizing the energy companies by saying, don't worry, we'll get the consumers to actually pay for it. Now, Ofgem is calling this shared responsibility. But let's think this through. If I owe money to any other type of company and I don't pay that bill, they have two choices. They can pursue me for that bill, they can go through the courts, they can try and get that money from me. Or ultimately, if I just can't pay it, they can write that off. And usually there's some tax incentives or other ways where they can reclaim some of that. I don't know of any other industry where they can literally go to the regulator, who's supposed to be on our side, and say, could you just take all of that debt and just spread it across all of the other customers who are paying their bills so they can pay a little bit more so we can claim back all of the money that we're owed and we can pay it out to our shareholders? This shared responsibility is nothing more than corporate subsidy. So why aren't energy companies footing the bill? Well, the Ofgem rules, which the energy companies had a lot of say in helping to form, says that bad debt is classified as a cost of supply. So as it's a cost, they can put those costs onto their customers. And there's no recourse to this because it says it's a cost of supply, just like the cost of the transmission lines or the cost of maintaining a transformer. That bad debt is a cost of supply. Therefore, you and I, the people who don't have bad debt, who are paying our bills as we should, we're the ones that have to foot the bill for it. So these same companies that helped create the rules of which they have to play by are also the same companies that have made over 4 billion in excess profits recently, which they've paid out as dividends to shareholders. So how come they couldn't have just written off that debt as out of these excess profits, maybe paid a little bit less to their shareholders, rather than heap the whole burden upon us as consumers? Now, not all of the MPs in Parliament are behind this. In fact, very recently, in one of the Energy Committee meetings, MPs called Ofgem's approach to this completely inadequate. That's MP speak for bullshit. They want the profits to be able to pay to their shareholders, and they want us to top up their inability to call in their debt. They want us to cover that. So what's government's role in this? Well, Ofgem are supposed to be independent, but we all know when the minister calls, they all stand up and say, yes, sir. So it's been very clear that Ed Miliband, the energy minister, has been kind of absent when all of this has been going on. He hasn't said anything about it. He hasn't brought it up. Why? Because it doesn't look very good for him. Him, the man who was promising to bring our bills down by £300 a month, is the one that is really quietly letting the energy companies add another £52 a year to that. So ultimately, it means that he is supporting subsidies to the energy companies. It means their profits will be untouched. They'll actually see larger dividends to their shareholders, and you and I are going to foot the bill. So what can we do about this? Well, the first thing we can do is contact our energy suppliers and just raise our hand and say, this is not acceptable. I've already sent an email, which I hope will reach Greg Jackson, but probably won't, to Octopus to say, I'm not all right with this. And I want to know what their position is. Because again, they've been very quiet about this. This has been out now for over a month, and we've had nothing from any of the energy companies. They're all just sitting back going, we want this to go through as quietly as possible. Let's not rile up any of our consumers. The energy companies, if they can't manage their debt, that's their problem. They are corporate entities, just like any other company. If they have debts, they have to manage them. Just because you're an energy company shouldn't mean you get special treatment from the government. And we never agreed as consumers in none of our paperwork, none of our agreements with these energy companies, did we agree to bail them out just because they can't manage their debt. And we shouldn't be able to be forced to by the energy regulator. So, a question for everybody. Should we as consumers be paying for energy companies' mistakes? Let me know in the comments below what you think. Let me know what you think we can do, because right now, I think we're being railroaded. I think this was pushed out in October, very, very quietly. If you don't look at the Ofgem website, which I'm assuming 99.9% of the population never do, you'd never know this was going to happen. And then come January, this extra cost would just be slipped into your energy bill. And most of the time, they would hope that nobody would ever notice. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you found this video interesting. I'd love to know what you think, and if I'm lucky, I will see you back here real soon for another video. Take care. Bye-bye.